Night from 8 to 9 p.m. exclusively on Soul Light Radio 96.1 FM. It's the perfect way to...
We're live? Oh, sorry. It's definitely caught off guard. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Pleasure Pulse. I'm your host, Roma Richardson, and you are joining me on ZIZ, on radio, on Facebook, and on YouTube. And I will really allow my guests to introduce themselves when we come back. But before we do that, as usual, we'll take a short break so that you can let everybody know that Pleasure Pulse is on. And then we'll come right back here and start tonight's conversation. So stay tuned. I'm your host, Roma Richardson, and you are joining me another Tuesday, 27th May. May is already done. And so we are almost at the half mark of the year, and it is so interesting to just think about how, just a couple of days ago, it feels like we were on the road for Juve and Parade Day, and now we here on the eve, really, of Music Fest. Anyways, I'm going to have my guest introduce himself, and then we will get into tonight's conversation.
Good night once again to all our viewers out here. My name is Dawud Byron. You probably know me through social media. I'm also the owner of Rastwood's Breakfast Delights, where we serve homemade meals. And this every day start at 7:30. On weekdays, it's 7:30 to 10:30, and weekends is 7:30 to 11:30. Don't miss out. Food good. So I heard.
And tonight we are actually not talking about food, which is interesting. You could consider it a kind of food.
Well, food for thought.
Food for thought.
Yes.
And, people use eating metaphors and so on a lot when we're talking about sex. So it is a kind of nourishment and consumption.
Yes, sometimes you just tell a baby one yum yum.
Exactly, and sorry to the listeners who might be a little, that's a little shocking, but we also, we're putting you on, maybe this is language that you never heard before, but that you might be interested in incorporating your life. Anyways, tonight we're continuing the conversation that was started last week about friends with benefits, and my guest last week made an important point, which is that we are missing some critical perspectives. And so I have brought in one of those critical perspectives, to share from your man's perspective about friends with benefits. Because I know for sure that from my own experiences, at least, men tend to see friends with benefits differently than women might see it, and we're talking heterosexual relationships for now. And so I wanted to bring you on to hear from you, what your experience has been with friends with benefits, how you view it, the arrangement and so on, whether you think it's more positive than negative or vice versa. So let me remind you all of the definition that I found. And then you can share your own definition, or you share the own way that you see friends with benefits. So one of the definitions I found online is that friends with benefits is a relationship dynamic in which people who are friends or friendly with each other agree to be physically or sexually intimate without the commitment or expectations typically associated with a traditional romantic relationship. So it's like friends, you know what friends are, people who know each other, they talk to each other, they hang out and so on, but then you have this added layer of sexual or other types of physical intimacy.
Yes.
What do you think of this definition? Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you define friends with benefits?
I think it's a general definition. It definitely hits in some aspects. When it comes to friends with benefits, sometimes you don't become friends with the person. It might just be an instant where y'all meet up and they end up to be acquaintances. And then acquaintances, throughout conversation, you get to find out some things, if this person is in a relationship or they're not, but they're not seeking anything more than what it is, but they want a little, a little pleasure now and then, without any kind of attachment when it comes to like status, relationship status of those sort. So yeah, the definition is clear.
Okay.
And I think it could go way deeper than that in terms of the dynamics of the friends with benefits. So sometimes it might be a situation where I might be having somebody, I'm in a relationship with someone, but the type of personality that other person has or the female has is way different than what I have home. So I might be attracted to that. My woman might be more conservative, laid back, well attuned with herself, whereas this next person is very aggressive, demanding, outgoing, some elements where my main woman would have, this person would feel in. So sometimes we look at that aspect where what we're missing from our own partners, we get it from somewhere else, and vice versa with females too. I think the difference with men now, if it's a case where if we were attracted to you, are really attracted to you to the point that we wanted a relationship, and then you decide that you don't want to have something of that nature, you just want us to be cool or whatever. Now, in our head, okay, if that's what she wanted, that's fine. And then maybe 2 months later, you came out of a relationship, all of a sudden you start to talk certain things, But in the man's mind, he tell himself, well, you didn't want me when I wanted you, so now I ain't gonna want you just for this sole purpose, which is sexual favors or whatever other incentive I could get if it's a person like to spend on the man or whatever the case may be. A man like gets money spent on to it, so sorry to say, fellas, but I have to talk the truth, So, but some men just tell themselves, well, if that's the case, then I'm gonna just leave it as is. Where I would see like the woman now, when she made a decision, it comes more with emotions. If a man will know how to deal with the emotions because he understands the dynamic of the situation. So if I know for a fact you're into me as it is now, and I'm not into you, I will play the game to make you feel like that you're into me, I'm into you, so I could get everything what I want without having to give you a title or status.
This sounds on many levels very messed up.
It is.
Yeah, it sounds like, but you're saying men know how to deal with their emotions and so on. That ain't sound like people who know how to deal with their emotions and deal with those like lingering feelings that they have, because if those are the issues you have with the person, what's preventing you from saying, I was really hurt when we were here before and it wasn't
No. That itself is a trap for men. A man allowing himself to express emotions to a woman, it could be very detrimental. Very detrimental. Because society done paint men as, we don't supposed to express our emotions. And sometimes as a man, you have to be mindful, because men, when mixed with emotions, we're more aggressive, we're more hands-on, we're more in your face. So for a man who doesn't know about doesn't know about having emotional intelligence and control of the emotion is a very dangerous person. Because we're talking about the physicality of it, talking about the aggressiveness and the whole structure of how men are designed versus the woman. You don't want to get a man upset.
How men are designed or how they are raised?
Well, that too. But, and again, emotions does get the best of people. I've seen the strongest set of people break down because of certain things, what happened to them, they could never expect it. And seeing that from men, that's why you see a lot of men, the suicide rate is very high to men versus women. Women know to keep their emotions in check because they're so natural. They're so accustomed to understand their emotions, like they could play with it and then they could know how to drive it back. Because once a woman make up she mind that she want not to do it, that's it. I sure you could speak on that part too, in terms of like understanding your emotions to a point where when it's done, it's done. As a man would say it's done, but he still would want that level of pleasure. Just because he just don't want the woman move on.
Which is, I mean, and just a couple of things. I think it's interesting that you talk about emotions and how you talk about emotions and processing your emotions and dealing with your emotions, because I don't know if it's a hot take or what, but my take is this space that we're in, no one really is encouraged to and really given the tools to identify their emotions and deal with their emotions. So whether you're talking like any gender, I've seen that with, right? Like how we relate to each other, how the stereotype is that women are like gentle and tender and all of these things. I don't really. I don't see, like, a lot of us are quick to use violence. A lot of us are quick to use like verbally abusive language. And that's like I feel like that's everybody. And
I feel like you say that is more common with women.
I don't know. I don't know like the rates, but I feel like it's common across genders. And I think because we socialize men to think that violence is okay, I think that's where more of the difference come in, even though we very much like, if somebody hits you, hit them back, to every child, not every child, but so, irrespective of gender, a parent can tell their child that. I think girls get it less than boys, and I think boys are more socialized to see violence as acceptable and as normal and as an appropriate way to deal with conflict or to deal with frustration or anger and things like that. But I find that interesting, right? That you said. I also find it interesting that, like, some of the examples you give of friends with benefits are people who are in relationships.
Trust me, I believe.
Are those friends with benefits, or is that just cheating?
It's cheating.
But they would call it friends with benefits.
They would try to sensitize it to as friends with benefits or situationships. For in that instance where as the man who is playing on this side, as the side man, right, that will cause a lot of stress on you as a man, because I think men are more empathic than women. I think women are more, men are more empathic. Okay. And the reason for that is men are always taught to be responsible for everything around them. And they're responsible for the family, they're supposed to be responsible for the friends, they're supposed to be responsible for the woman, they're supposed to be responsible for the household, the economy. Men are literally born with this idea that have to be responsible. We can't just sit down and just allow life to pass out. We have to do something. We have to find our purpose and put that into the working world, and make some kind of effort. So sometimes that's why I would say men are more empathic, because we understand we have all this responsibility and we ain't got a choice. Not you ain't got a choice, because no woman ain't gonna study you if you not take care of her, right? And that's where a lot of conflict come, because now women are understanding that the level of responsibility that men go through, they're taking it upon themselves. And then it's stressful on them now, because it's much more weight on them than what they already have as a woman, dealing with being pressured by other men, being pressured by other women, and so on and so forth. So it's like that energy, but they pick up with the masculine energy now, because they have to stand firm, they have to take all these beatings, because they want to take care of themselves and be independent. It's gonna cause conflict. And if you know, throughout history, when two men got it out or they got a disagreement, they're gonna fight.
I know them.
And we gonna
involve entire countries, continents, law.
But
urinating wars.
So, but at the end of the day, right? That is how men operate. Now, when you put men and women together now, and women on acting under the same frequency as a man would, men now will have to kind of dial back down, because they understand this is a woman, but this is a very aggressive woman. This is a very disrespectful woman. This is a very hands-on woman, And that's why a lot of men kind of drawing back from them, because if they have to go based on just primitive instinct, then a lot of women won't be able to do what they have to do. As a matter of fact, a lot of the things that women are doing now is because men influence them, in a sense. Mm-hmm. You ain't want a man who can't take care of you, right? You ain't want a man who's spending the money on you. If he not spend, as I think I had a line that say, if a boy not spend money upon you, he better dead. And that's coming from a man. So for me, that is very disappointing, because you're telling women that men who actually trying to better themselves and to, put themselves in a better position, that they can't have these type of women, because they are considered, what is it, the term, broke boys, they're trying and weighing, they in a bob, what they say, the Bob the Builder, they building up a man. But how come man got to build up woman all the time? And that's where
it's a different conversation for a different day, because there are so many examples.
No, I just
there's
going
so
down.
many examples of that though. Many examples in media. Okay, I'm using a fictional example from a movie that comes to mind. Diary of a Mad Black Woman.
Mm-hmm.
She had to build the man, and then he left her and drag her out the house and all these things and so on. And then, but that's not the only example, because I feel like there are so many famous men, especially, who talk about the women who have been there with them when they had nothing, when they were, it's like, there's so many examples of that.
But can you blame the man for the fact that he achieved a level of success that he can pick and choose who he wants to be with or who he wants? Now, I'm not saying that is right. All I'm saying is this is the approach, or this is where a lot of people just go to. A lot of women go for the rich men, the men who are, as they say, high valued, well accomplished men. They're not gonna go for the man who has the potential. And I could understand that they want to build a man. But let's put it in reverse now. How many men build so many women, or put them in the same position, or share that same status and money and fame and whatever the case may be with the woman, and she end up divorcing for his money?
Anyway,
No,
so
no,
when
no,
does this
no.
happen? No, when does this happen in friends with benefits situation?
Okay,
Because that's
for
what-
example,
that's what we're talking about, because
So,
that don't happen
okay.
there. And that's why I said this is another conversation for another
But-
time.
so
and you
since we-
feel like you want to talk about that?
no, we got no, but I'm glad you brought up the friends with benefits, because
That's
this
what we're
is
talking about.
so now we're the friends with benefits, right? For example, husbands. You know that's a growing conversation. A lot of women are going with women husbands as of late. You know, because one, they see that the man is in a serious level of commitment. Two, they could also use that as an advantage to bribe the man, because I've seen it before. I heard it. I know friends who did that before, where, well, if you ain't give me this $1,000, I'm going to send your wife this video or doing this, that, and the third, right? Now, to the husbands, right? If you know in your heart and your soul that you don't want to commit to this woman, that you went up the altar in the place of a God to stand and say, I do, and I will not break apart. No man, what I said, no man or woman will left asunder. Yes, and you go against that, any form of punishment or anything happen to you, you deserve it. You deserve it. I rather cheat while I in a relationship with a woman, a girlfriend, that to cheat
When you're single.
When I
Well,
I am
legally
single, but technically
legally single.
legally
yeah, if
single.
you're not married.
If you're not married,
Yeah, you're
yes.
single illegally. Mhm.
Okay, but to do it while you're married, you put yourself in such a deep hole.
So is it that people, because the question came up, the last time, and it came up because someone told me that they were getting approached by a lot of people who were married.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was also curious about people in relationships, not just people who are married, but people who are in relationships and want quote unquote friends with benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that friends with benefits should work is that both of you are friends. And it's like we're both single.
Okay.
Even if we are looking for love, but we choose to do this with each other, we're both single. For example, I'm watching this show on Netflix, Sneaky Links, right?
I think that's
yeah,
right,
we don't
yeah.
talk about Sneaky Links here. So what the show is, they have brought together people who have been each other's sneaky links like over time to this motel. I think maybe like 6 couples, also not really couples, but 6 pairs of sneaky links, to see if, because they have said that they want to find love. So they're trying to see if they can find love with their sneaky link, or if they have to let them go and find love with somebody else there or somebody else off the show.
Wow.
Imagine what would have happened if you had some people show up to that show who are married. Like, that's not...
but you don't
Just
even
not,
know
like,
that.
the person in your sneaky link, if you're married, you're just cheating. Like, unless you are in an open relationship, where, and if you are in an open relationship, it means that people know about your other partners, so they're sneaky linking anyways. But if you are doing something in secret that your partner, who you are partnered with, doesn't know about, how can that be? Like, cause you can, and you might not, you might keep your friends with benefits arrangement private, or you might be open about it. But if you can only keep it private because you ain't supposed to be doing it based on the agreement that you made with your partner,
But
that is not like a friend with benefit. But why is it that people who are in relationships are not willing to have conversations with their partners about how they really feel you know, and that doesn't have to do with the person, the other person, right? That has everything to do with you. But why aren't you willing to have that conversation and be honest about your desire to see other people?
So, let me say this, right? I'm going to use this example. You're working for a company, right? And
will you tell them if you're looking at for other jobs?
Even tell the boss man, may really like what you just do, you know. I'll be covering all your work. I got to be hiding all these documents, X, Y, and Z. And I don't feel like I'm not being reciprocated in the way I'm supposed to get. So let me tell you now, I'm going to your other boss. You think that boss man going to keep you around?
No. Sorry,
But so let's say I'll use you. Let's say you tell your boyfriend, I met this fellow, right? He seemed cool, We hit it off, great conversation. And I feel like
this is a way to talk.
No, I feel like we could get something here, but I don't want to do it because I don't know how you might feel. But this is what I want to do. Tell me how you feel about that. I want to have relations with this person while still having relations with you. How you think that conversation gonna end?
What's interesting about both of those situations, and you said it earlier, when you said people don't want to hold on to people don't want to let people go. Mm-hmm. Because in both of those situations, you are taking away the option or opportunity from the other person to decide what they want to do. So the other person should be able to say, that's okay with me, or that's not okay with me. Just like your boss supposed to be able to say, I hear you, and okay, I'm going to give you a raise, or we ain't getting no raise, so I'm going to let you go. And it also is something that I've been thinking about this is a side note, relation to conversations about consent. Because we treat consent as this big daunting thing, when consent is something that both people have the agency or should have the agency and autonomy to decide for themselves. So it's like, if you are interested in having sex with someone, the other person should also be interested in having sex with you, and that's what sex should be, right? Yes. And it shouldn't be that you remove the opportunity or the option from the person to opt in or opt out. So it's like, the way that you're saying it is like, yeah, that's never going to happen, in either scenario, but that's really what should happen. And in some situations, you might be surprised that your partner said, actually, I've been thinking about the same thing. I've been thinking about, because there's this really good looking girl that I know that I'm interested in, but I didn't know how to bring up the topic of an open conversation. Can we try it?
I mean, if like I said, is on the conversation.
Yeah.
And transparency is very good and very important, because it allows the person to understand the kind of mindset you have towards not just themselves, towards the relationship too. And have to kind of come to, is either you come to terms or you just don't want to do it. You can't kind of go halfway in and then you decide, well, I don't want that anymore. I remember.
Give me an example.
I'm gonna chat my story. I'm gonna chat another story. I remember this girl. She approached me and she was like, I always look, to you as, I had my long time crush, X, Y, and Z. I said, okay, cool, no problem. So what is it that you want? Me looking for a relationship right now. I just want, something we could just hang out, whatever the case may be. I said this 3 times that I said, you sure this is what you want? Yeah, I could handle it. I could deal with it. Get in maybe a month in. where we start to talk more, having good conversation. Actually, enjoy having conversations with this person, but I make sure I ask them, "You sure is that what you want?" And I asked the second time, I said, "You sure is that what you want?" Because
and when you say is that, you mean the friends with benefits,
Fits,
not
yes.
the relationship.
Friends with benefits, yes. You sure is that? Yes, I want that. Okay, time passed. Start to get connected more. Start to, build better bond, better conversation. Month 3, energy just change, which I don't see coming, but I make sure I pull it down the line. Like, you sure this is what you wanted? Because in my head, it's like I go based on what you say, so I don't feel like. You don't make me feel like I took advantage of the situation. I told you exactly what you want. Let me process it as if I want this relationship or whatever the case may be. But you did not indicate that at no point. You can't wait till 3-4 months in to decide that you want a relationship. No. Because I've been asking you if that's what you want, because I know, based on how you carry yourself, that is not the kind of mindset you have. That I don't feel that is something for you. I know people who I just walk, they just cut and go through. Both men and women. And I feel like women nowadays are more direct with it, because they will let you know, well, it's just a link here. That's it. Mm-hmm. And some man might catch feelings because the woman got such a vibe, sexually or whatnot. And in her mind, she just like, no, bye, you can't do that. You ain't understand that the sex good, and that's that. And that will tear down anybody, because in your head, it's like, I really go on a level of attraction to this person. No, this person telling me it was never like that. It's just sex. Of course, he can defeat you. So sometimes people need to tell people what they really want. Don't go in and try to set that kind of trap, because some people will make you feel guilty, like, oh, well, we have dated for 4 months and you don't want to take me serious, how come this and that? And then you might be a person who just be a pitiful person. You'll be like, I want that with you. And then 3 months in, 4 months, 6 months, you're miserable now. Miserable.
So let me ask you a question. Knowing, you say you knew what kind of person she was, and you knew that she wasn't necessarily somebody, or you didn't think she was somebody who could do just like your friends with benefits. So why you went ahead with it? No judgment, I'm just curious. And also, when she said, that she wanted more, what did you do?
Well, I let her know, like, my mind ain't there for that.
Me not depend on that.
Me not depend on that. Me not in a business day. You know what I mean? Because I don't ask you. Mm-hmm. So, and then same thing I said. She felt hurt, broke down, whatever the case may be. And I'm just there like, like, are you done?
What is that?
Are you done? Like, not mentally. It may say out loud. I'm sorry, but it's like,
no, to be
are you like, yeah, like,
because earlier before the show we were talking about, and the definition too is that there are really no expectations of a romantic relationship or connection. And I think there are also, like, in that is that you imagine it will be absent of like emotional connection or vulnerability or things like that. So it's like your friend with benefits might not be the person that you could go quite on to, so like in a situation like that where, like, she was going through it and you were like, oopsies, it's like,
yeah,
we have to, I think, be clear about who we are placing certain expectations on. And I appreciate that you were honest with her about,
I was,
where you that you were still where you were in the beginning, because sometimes that happens. And I think sometimes people be like, they wouldn't respond that honestly they would like ignore it or act like they didn't hear it and then continue with the friends with benefit situation, which I think is really can become, really
They're being delusional. They be as this
problematic.
is they're being delusional. As I said, they're being delulu. So and I think a lot of people don't try to come. I think that's something I've seen common nowadays. Like people don't want to come to reality to certain things, and I think that's where a lot of relationships do fail because there's a level of expectation. Some people just have this kind of like process where, okay, I deal with this man, I want him to be like this. I got this woman, I want her to be like that. But the reality is you can decide how a person should be.
Right.
And then that's where a lot of people would fail. Oh, I want a man who making this amount of money. Okay, you find a man who making this amount of money. But he's a a-hole. He know to talk to people, he know to talk to you. Because he done tell himself, well, when I had the money, or maybe he was in a situation when he had the money, no man was studying him. And now he got money and he realized the type of woman he attracting to, they just want it for his money. He just shun our woman and treat our woman the same. Vice versa, if a woman who got, hurt, physically from a man or sexually from a man, she's gonna put up every resistance to other men who actually want to be in her life because in her head is like, I trusted a man before a friend, a family member, and they took advantage of me. So I got to be as strong, I got to be as masculine as I can because I've been deceived before, Somebody put up this mask that they think, well, this person is so nice and so generous, and then when you get close to them, you find out they're like some kind of demon. And then that demon nature could pass on to that person too. A lot of people don't realize that too. Some of the behaviors of what we see right now is from drama, even to the friends with benefits. You might see your mother and father had a very detrimental relationship, that affect you psychologically, that you don't want to commit to nobody for too long because you see your parents went through the worst of it and they broke up very, very, very hard. So a lot of these things are affected, but a lot of people don't admit these things. So now you're going in with your arms open thinking, well, but this person is so cool and so calm, and then they just got all this trauma and pain, and they expect you to just dump all on you for you to just deal with it or take care of it. No. And that's where people prefer to be in situationship nowadays, because relationship hard, It's very hard. The woman I know personally in relationships that I talk to sexually, as a woman who are single, are quote unquote single, it's frightening and it's scary. Because these women are good women. In my eyes, they're in a good relationship, they're with a good man. And you're talking to me like, you ain't got a man. That's scary.
I think, and I mean, it's what we've been talking about, like, people in relationships wanting to have friends with benefits and things like that. When, like, also the point of friends with benefits is that you are not in a relationship and you maybe still want the benefits that people might get in a relationship, which might be sexual activity, and maybe you want it maybe you prefer, having it with one person or multiple specific persons over time, as opposed to like one-off or casual hookup or so. But the interesting thing about it is that our spaces, and not just our spaces, right? But I think there's so much emphasis and value placed on monogamy and traditional relationships that even though people are in practice non-monogamous, they will never talk about being openly or comfortably non-monogamous. Is like, yeah, I love my woman, I'm a man, blah 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 blah, and still I will have sex with multiple other people without them knowing. And that's the part that I want to emphasize, without them knowing, without their approval, or with not approval, but without their okay, without at least their knowing. And I find that really interesting how we put so much value on monogamy when there are so many people. How we place so much value on monogamy, even among the people who are non-monogamous and might never be interested in monogamy. So it's like there's something that prevents us, and it's probably those traditional models, feeling like this is the ideal relationship type, feeling like this is the ideal situation in which to have children, feeling like this is what will provide you with the respect and approval from others and so on, when really that ain't why you want.
But I feel that all that is really from perspective, as how you see, like, when you grow up in the environment, environment plays an important part too. If you grow up in an environment where it's all single homes, or homes with persons who are in marriage, then naturally you will fall in line. That's just how people designer would follow, Now with social media involved, the walls are broken. Now you're exposed to so many things that your mind just absorbing all these different kind of perspectives and different behaviors that you yourself become confused. Because at one end, let's say, for example, I don't know, who is your favorite musician? Give me one of your favorite female musicians at this, like, let's say, I don't know, who is your favorite female musician?
Right now? Solange.
Solange Rose? Okay. From past experience, Solange.
I don't know if I should have given her as an example.
So Solange is a friend. There are moments where she show a level of aggression towards others, especially her brother-in-law, defending her sister, whatnot, and being in other relationships with celebrities and whatnot. And you idolize this person, naturally you're gonna conform to the behaviors of this person. The same way when girls look up to Jada Kingdom, and Jada Kingdom is saying, if the boy can't buy you a Birkin bag, no talk to him, no speak to him. You understand?
She's not wrong. I'm joking.
No, you're not.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
But influence plays
most boys can't buy us Birkin bags.
The economy
a Birkin bag will not be a reality for most of us.
No.
But what we need to remember is, and I was listening to this podcast and they're talking about relatability. A lot of these folks, even though we think that they're just like us,
no.
So we need to be realistic, and so for our situation and these situations we are likely to access. I hear you.
So that's what I'm saying. If you enter into a as I say, friends with benefits, and it's too much for you, why are you still around? Especially if that is not in your nature. You're not a person that could handle that type of energy where it's just point A, point B. That's it. No kind of intermission, no intervals in between, nothing like that. It's just sex. You want a little money. Now and again, you want to buy, outfit. You want to go music fest. That's a part of the friends with benefits. But sharing your life story and your trauma and whatever the case may be
might not be.
No, that off limits. Yeah. But a lot of people don't know how to differentiate themselves. Like for me, affection does cause a lot of problems if you're having friends with benefits. If you know you're a person that like to kiss and you like to be affectionate and warming up on them things there, friends with benefits is not for you because you're going to catch feelings. Because naturally how we are grown as humans, physical touch is our thing, you know. So for me, if I get myself involved in a situation like that now, I'm not me kissing this person here. I'm not doing it. I mean, like kiss.
Yeah, I mean, people do set,
Set boundaries.
you know, boundaries and the scope of what is allowed or what they're okay with or not okay with in their friends with benefit situation, and that will vary. So you might find some people who are okay with that, and it doesn't mean that they, you know, develop feelings. You might find that, but that might not be the first person that you meet. Like, you know, you might have to shop around a bit before you find the ideal person, or a person who is at least most closely aligned with you when you're seeking your friends with benefits arrangement.
So let me ask you, have you ever been in a situation like that? Or you ever been in relations with somebody and then you found out that it was just friends with benefits? Or you ever put yourself in a situation where you knew this was the case? I look in your story.
Wait,
I don't give you I want your story.
Oh, you want?
I want to know if you ever been in that situation.
I appreciate how you framed that, as in you realizing that it's friends with benefits, because it really shouldn't. That shouldn't be a realization. Like, that should be something you know from the start, right? And it is very disappointing to know. And so, like, I guess for me, I wouldn't categorize that as a friends with benefits situation, because a friends with benefits situation for me is one where both of you agree to be friends with benefits. If one of you is going in it thinking like, oh, I've been talking to this person, we are building something, and then the other person says, oh no, it's just sex for me, that's like clearly, you know, an issue where whether it is you didn't talk about it, or
miscommunication,
you got signals that you interpret a particular way that the person maybe didn't intend it didn't intend that way or whatever. But any friends with benefit situation should be established as such from the beginning. Have I been in situations where, like, I thought, you know, we were progressing along and it turned out the person was just, yeah. Have I been in ones where I said, yeah, this is all it is? Yeah.
So
how they turn out, I can't even really remember. Because I think for me, I still, whether you are in a friends with benefits arrangement or you are in a romantic relationship, I think there are certain things that are still important and still necessary, like communication. But some people feel like if I talk to you, you're gonna think it's more than what it is, so I'm not going to talk to you. So, like, even to talk about, oh, what do you like, or talk about how you think it went and how you can maybe, you know, improve.
But
people, like, some people don't want to do that, and for me it's like, if I shine up, I want it to be worth my while, so we should at least be able to talk about.
And that is where things will go. Things will go
You're
wrong.
telling me, and that is the problem with you, Roma.
That is the problem.
Is that the problem, or is that?
That is a problem that it will cause a problem.
Is it? This is unfortunately our reality, but it's a reality that should change.
But you do realize that a lot of people, there are perceived realities versus actual realities. Like, I perceive this to be
Yeah.
as is. I want it this way. Even though it's friends with benefits, I want to be able to communicate with you. I
Yeah.
want to be able to talk to you.
And that's why you talk to the person to be like, this is how I see friends with benefits. This is what I want my friends with benefits situation to be like. And give the other person an opportunity to say, yeah, that's okay with me, or that's not okay with me. And the other person should be honest, because I think sometimes people would be like, yeah, that's okay with me, because they want what you're offering. And then while it's gone, it's like, actually, I said I was okay with that, but I wasn't okay with any of that in truth, because, and that's really dishonest.
It is. But like I said, people gonna play the game. It's a game, and it's not gonna stop, because
that's what is preventing people. Well, one of the things from having the most pleasurable sexual experiences that they can have, because a huge part of that is communication. A huge part of that is honesty and openness, like talking honestly about where you are, what it is you're looking for, what you desire, and like that makes for better sexual experiences. And sex ain't, as I said earlier, it ain't just about you, which is not to say you are responsible for the other person's pleasure. But if you're having partnered sex, I assume it's because you are interested in the other person's pleasure, right? Otherwise, have sex alone.
No, but even to men, right? And this is where we gonna differentiate in terms of how we deal with things. Like for men, if we know it's just for sex, we will just do it just for sex. Especially if we have a partner. No. I think women get more attached because it's like a spiritual thing.
I disagree.
This is just my perspective.
Okay,
I just feel like if a woman cheats, she cheats on the basis of
an
emotional standpoint, and then move forward. So it's like I could just jump into 5 different women and I go sleep with a woman. I feel a thing more them girls when I go sleep. But now if a woman, I know it changed a lot now, because some of these women, okay, they will tell you, bye, you just a cut.
I think that's how it always was. It's just that it's not okay for it to be like that. But how many instances you see that women cheat? And when I say it's not okay for it to be like that, I mean society says that it's not okay for it to be like that.
Society, yeah. But anything that you do is really based on society. It's not just.
It's not just you, individuals are just creating.
You
ideas.
Just don't want anybody to see you like this way, like Roma got 4 and 5, 6 man, like. Yeah. Well, okay, she wants her 4, 5, 6 man. You want me 7?
Go ahead, girl. Yeah, exactly. As Dexter Daps. But Dexter Daps normalized being number 7.
That's true. That is true. But what I find too is, I'm a firm believer in energy, and why I say energy is that whatever characteristics that you take on, or you have, it will be passed on to others. And from others as well. Okay. So, when you realize like somebody, let's say I use a man for example, because it happens to men too. Men who have like multiple women, you realize certain behaviors, they pick up certain female traits because they cross energy with so many different women with so many different personalities and traits that they start to have these kind of behaviors, and then it's like, why this man so aggressive? Why this man always so defiant? Because all those energies that he's been harboring, he started to take them on. That's when they say when you're with a partner for so long, you start to behave like your partner. You start to look like your partner. Because there's a chemical reaction when it comes to DNA swapping. And you pick up, especially when you're going with somebody long enough, you pick up certain things. You understand? I sure where you've probably been in a relationship for a while, you realize you start to do the things that your partner just do. Even after the relationship ended, you start to do certain things like that. So for me right now, that there itself, I got to be very careful because
Maybe deciding your friends with
benefits. It's
Got
very
you.
because energy
Okay.
is real.
Yeah. So we are like at time, and I want to leave the people with some actionable, steps. So, what would you say makes a friends with benefits situation work well? I think we talked about communication.
Yes, communication is one
I think we talked about boundaries.
too.
What else would you say makes it work well so that people have some things to think about or bear in mind when they are calling up?
Must have a level of understanding. Like for example, if we are friends with benefits, and I decide to be in a relationship, you have to be understanding enough that I'm currently in a relationship now, so a lot of the things that we used to do,
We can't do anymore, right? Okay,
You know.
I thought you mean be understanding that I'm in a relationship now, but I'm still in the friends with benefits. No, okay,
no,
okay.
and
But do you think if people are like, because some people might be in a friends with benefits situation, they're not romantically interested in that person, but that doesn't mean that they might not be open to other people. Do you think they should tell them that I'm in this friends with benefits situation with you, but I'm actually dating other people and looking to, so that we might not be able to do this forever?
Well, for my opinion, I would say yes, just off of transparency and understanding, but I don't think it's necessary because me sharing my personal relationship or attachments to anybody else, that's not of your concern. You know, the whole point is just for us to just do this. You're gaining this from me, I'm gaining this from you, and that's it. Anything
And
else?
when it's
outs-
done, it's done.
It done. So,
Okay.
yeah, anything outside of that has nothing to do with you. You can't have no kind of input, no kind of say, because that was never the case.
Okay.
I would respect it. I would personally respect it enough to let you know. No, I am in a relationship now, so we gonna got to either cut this off or we got to dial back down. Dial this down a lot, you know, until I end up become single again, or I just walk out. Well, I don't just call you just because I call you. But no, what you find is that when that happens, that's when the emotions kick in, because like, how dare you? How dare you get in a relationship with somebody
Okay.
and cut off all these benefits from me? How dare you?
Okay, so communication, boundaries, understanding. Anything else?
Respect. Definitely respect. I think respect would outweigh and carry it along the way. You know, because if I respect you enough to tell you that this is what I want, I should also respect you enough for you to allow yourself to do what you want, and without having any kind of mixed feelings or any kind of transgressions to in each other, because we already established that this is the case. We're not going beyond this, so let me leave it as that. Anything else after this, that has nothing to do with us, and I respect that to that point. So respect is one, definitely. I think respect would be in the top two. Communication and respect, because you can't be with friends if you don't respect the terms and the conditions. You have to respect it. So that's definitely have to be a part of that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me for another conversation. This was part
Anytime.
2 of our Friends with Benefits, and one of these days I'll organize it properly so that everybody is in the studio and we can have one big
I want
one big bacchanal.
No, one big bacchanal.
One
I'm
big
really waiting for this.
one big discussion about any of these topics. I hope you enjoyed tonight's conversation. Thank you so much for joining me
Yes,
as
yes, of
usual.
course.
And remember,
Likewise.
if you missed the conversation tonight, you can find it anytime. You know, they are all accessible on YouTube. If you go online on ZIZ Online's page or account on YouTube,
Yeah.
you can find Pleasure Pulse in playlist, so you can find this episode and other episodes of Pleasure Pulse there and watch it anytime. You can watch it on your drive to work, you can watch it while you're at the gym, you can watch it while you are listen to it while you are in the process of getting while you're having sex or while you're being intimate or so on. I would love if somebody does that and can tell me what it was like.
I would like to hear the story. I would like to hear that
because I feel like people will be like, wait, hold on, what did she say? I find it really fascinating. Anyways, I would really be curious to hear if anybody does that. But as usual, I'm going to wish you a pleasurable evening and remind you that Pleasure Pulse is a safe space where no topic is too big or too small. We talk about everything,
of course
here. So I will bid you adieu.
Peace and love to everybody.
Peace
and
good
love,
night. A pleasurable evening, and see you all next Tuesday.
Yes. Bye bye.